Welcome to the podcast, the Real Estate Social Club. John Paul, how's it going? Nice to see you again.
Yes, same. I appreciate you having me on. Sorry, we're doing it from the car. We're currently in a move, so instead of doing it in a hotel with my beautiful little daughter running around, I figured I would just pop out to the car real quick.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, talking a little story. Tell me a little bit about what you do. I know you're an expert in your fields. Tell the audience what is it that you do?
Well, I appreciate that. And so, a full-time real estate photographer, videographer. We go into obviously the housing prices here in Hawaii are, up there compared to other places, but we, go into anything from here, from $1,000 properties all the way to $20 million properties. So here in Hawaii, it's actually
Wow.
very cool. The range of houses that I'll see, literally, I'll go from a $500,000, which, is a lot of money, but here in Hawaii doesn't get you a whole lot. So I'll go from that to like I said, a 15-20 million dollar penthouse or property on the North Shore. So it's pretty wild. But yeah, so full-time real estate photographer, videographer.
So it sounds like you've seen a range, a variety of different types of real estate here in Hawaii, huh?
Yeah, it's probably like my favorite thing. For me, it's like I get a different office view every single day, and it's pretty cool not knowing, what really I'm going to when I pull up to these places. It's a cool aspect of the job.
And how did you get into it? Like, what led you to doing what you do?
Yeah, so I'm originally from West Virginia, but I moved to Puerto Rico to play basketball in college and then just loved it and stayed. And while I was there, I started with just a GoPro. I got into scuba diving and just started with just a GoPro and just kind of realized I had an eye for photography. I'd never been into it before that. And so I ended up getting a drone kind of like way before everyone had a drone. This was like 2011, 2012. And, I was at the time, I was working at a hotel, and I kept telling them, "Hey, let me make you guys a video." This is when Instagram and, social media was really starting to pick up. And so they finally agreed to let me make them a video, and, they never had any drone work before or anything, so, like, when they posted it, it just exploded for them. And, so, like, a week later, I get a call from this guy, and he's like, "Hey, John Paul, what are you doing next week?" And I was like, "Oh, just working at the hotel." This time I was setting up chairs. I was a beach boy setting up chairs on the beach as a 20-year-old kid, from West Virginia. To me, I was living the dream. I was like, "Man, I could do this my whole life, working on the beach." And so he's like, "What are you doing next week?" He said, "I got 5 properties in Jamaica, I'd love for you to come out and shoot them." So it kinda started from there, and literally after that phone call I went and bought a real camera. I had a GoPro and a drone. He didn't know that that's all I filmed this previous video with. So I went out and bought a real camera and just started YouTubing how to use a real camera. And so
Mm.
literally learned everything from YouTube on the fly. Flew to Jamaica, shot these 5 properties. They loved it. Actually, they had me down there like 3 times, so that was a cool part of the job. So that's what really opened me up to photography and videography. And then, just real estate just happened to naturally fall into that.
No, it's fantastic. What a good story. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you've been doing it for how long now?
Like 13 years, I think. I think really started in, like, 2012. Yeah, going on, like, 13 years. It's crazy how
Now,
fast time flies.
right? Oh my goodness. So tell me, I believe in having good visuals really makes a big impact. And from a buyer or a seller's perspective, what do you think what do you think that impact is for either of the two?
I mean, I think it's so important and, kinda on both sides, as a seller, you obviously wanna try to get top dollar for your property.
Mhm.
So, and unfortunately, a lot of times we still see, multi-million dollar homes And because every now and then I get on Zillow and Realtor.com, just look at houses, just it's our industry, so I just wanna see what's out there. And I'll see these, super nice homes that I can tell just because of me being a photographer and knowing, I can tell that they're really nice, but the photos are just not doing them justice at all. And
Mhm.
so as a seller, it's so important to have good quality photos and video. Honestly, it's everything nowadays. Like that's a major part of what's gonna sell your property is good photos and then good video now on for social media to just, reach, as many people as you can. So it's so important. And a lot of times I'll see realtors still just using, you know, trying not to use a professional photographer. So like they'll go in with their iPhone, which iPhones can take really good pictures, but you also got to know the angles and everything to get, so that's why you should hire a, professional to come in there and, really do justice for your properties. And then as a buyer, I've seen it sometimes, especially when I've been looking at properties, for renting sometimes, I'll look at, I've a couple times I've looked at a property and the photos were like, okay, and then I got there in person and it's like way nicer and it's like, whoa, what the heck? Like it doesn't even look like the same and it just comes back to that's not really doing the property justice at all. So and then vice versa, the property could be really nice as a buyer, but if the photos don't look like you could just skip over it. So
Right.
potentially not even seeing a house that could really be a good fit for you because it's got a couple photos and they're not good quality.
Those are solid points. And, I do believe it is very important to have a certain standard. You have a baseline as a seller, especially right, you ask of your realtor or, agent to find the best professionals or tools to market your property. So I've
Yes.
also seen some really not so good looking type of photos, and it really does make an impact and a negative impact, right? Because some of these people, these buyers might not even look at it. They just skim right over, right? It just takes a couple seconds to
Yep.
immediately know if it's something visually interesting, appealing, or something
Yep.
that draws you to the property. So if it's well, not well lit, bad framing, in the photo, you can see clutter or, it's so important to have a photographer go in there and it's worth it. It makes a bit, it sells the
Mhm.
property faster. More people will look at it on the internet, social media, what have you. So I really do believe it's a very important to have a certain baseline of what that kind of looks like. And I've
And
seen
even
some not
and
so,
even to
but
take it
go ahead.
even to take it a step further, it's so important, like, the order that you upload the photos in, when you upload it to the MLS. If you just put if it's a super nice house and you just put, a photo of, the kitchen and it's the opening one, it doesn't do the property justice, whereas, a photo of showing the grand living room or, just the house overall with maybe I've seen a lot of times it's a super nice house right on the water and the main photo they have is like of the kitchen or something. And it's
Huh?
like it's so important even just the order that you upload it in. That's how important media is because a lot of times people instead of seeing they don't know it's right on the water. They literally have to click this photo of a kitchen to then be like, "Oh wow, this house is right on the water." So it's just so many aspects that go into it and how important it is.
For sure, for sure. I'm in agreement with that. I'm right there with you, JP. Now, tell me, so you've lived in Hawaii for some time, how long you've been here, and what brought you here?
Yeah, so we've been here 3 years now. My wife is in the Army, and we were in Colorado Springs before this, but it's really the Army did bring us here, but I 100% believe in manifestation. Because I'd tell you, as a kid from West Virginia, like, the ultimate dream goal for me was like, "Man, one day I wanna live in Hawaii."
Oh,
Just always in my head, I just kinda knew that I was like, it's kinda like the ultimate, paradise, ultimate goal to strive for, And, so even when I was living in Puerto Rico, to me, Puerto Rico is like home, like, I absolutely love it. If you've never been, I highly suggest going, it's an amazing place. And, even when I was there, I was like, "Man, one day I'm gonna live in Hawaii." Not knowing kind of, the route that it would get me here and was more so thinking it'd be like, maybe when I retire or something, far off.
Mhm.
And then I ended up meeting my wife in Colorado, and then kinda when the time came open, we bought a house in Colorado, and then when the time came for her to PCS there, it was like, they gave us some options, and Hawaii was one of 'em. We took it while we could for sure, and we've been here 3 years and absolutely loved it, and unfortunately, our time is coming to an end here, so we're gonna be PCSing here shortly.
Got it.
But I'll still, still gonna have a lot of work here, so I'll be flying back, maybe once a month to do some work here.
Sweet. Now, when you bought your property in Colorado, can we unpack that a little? What made you decide to purchase? And how did that, what was that experience like?
Tell you, it is now the biggest regret of my life because we sold it, and we shoulda kept it. This is a life lesson. Hold on to your real estate property.
Okay.
So, we bought it in 2020, which, of
Okay.
course, was an amazing time to buy. I think we had a 3% interest rate, and yeah, we bought it for 340,000. It was a, really nice four-bedroom, two-bath, updated home with a yard, and, when we were going to PCS, just the way the market was, the prices were kind of at the max of what they were, and so we were able to sell it for 440. So we made it, 100,000 without having to do anything to it. At the time, someone's waving $100,000 in front of your face. It's tough to say no to that, but looking back on it now, I now learned we should have held onto that property and just rented it out and cash flowed it because of the interest rate. Would have been able to, the renter would have paid the mortgage, and we would have had a little bit extra, but even just paying the mortgage, and we hold on to that for the next 25 years, and, the value of it at that point, who knows what it is, right now it's around 500,000, but, that could have been our retirement right there on itself.
Right.
It was a great experience buying it and selling it, like I said, because we made the money. Looking back on it now, I've learned, man, shoulda held on to it. So our when we moved to Hawaii, we bought a place here, and, so now we're gonna be renting that out and holding on to that for sure.
So that's where you learned from, the Colorado experience. Now you're deciding to hold on to this one.
Yes, for sure. And, the market kinda dictates a lot, but even if the prices would kinda, skyrocket like they did, earlier with the Colorado house, I don't think I'd sell it because just in the long run, in 25 years, imagine what the property we have now is worth because, in Hawaii, there's only so much space, so the value here, it's a very unique market to where you don't really see prices drop too often. Even in a crash, I really don't think they would drop dramatically. Maybe a
Mhm.
little bit here and there, but just the value over the long run is gonna go up significantly, so definitely gonna hold on to this property.
Let me ask you, how did you find your real estate agent and your lender for both places? What was that journey like?
Yep. So, our realtor, we found him through YouTube. Once we realized we were gonna be moving to Hawaii, literally just got on YouTube and typed in "PCSing to Hawaii," and, found a video of Patrick Longley. Shout out Patrick, and I could kinda tell, and this is why another aspect of why video is so important. Right away from his videos, even though he was just recording them from his office
Uh-huh.
because at that point, I wasn't here yet, so obviously, he was just kinda recording all his own stuff and posting it online, but I could tell just that his vibe, his overall vibe through the video. And so I was like, "Man, I feel like I could, get along with this guy, like, we could be friends." And
Mhm.
so, I sent him a message and we did a FaceTime, and kinda right away, we were like friends right away, and so, once we moved here, well, obviously we used him to buy, he helped find our property, and then, I just naturally I became his photographer and videographer. So now all his YouTube videos, I film them. We go out, usually once a week and, go to different neighborhoods, do different home tours, stuff like that. And so, I
Awesome.
mean, that's another aspect of how important video is.
And you're PCSing for
And then the
audience that
lender,
don't know.
we found her through our
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, no worries. The lender, we found her through our lender in Colorado. So, she had a friend here, and so that's who we used.
Cool. And shoot, I already forgot what I was gonna say. For the audience, PCSing, what is that?
Yeah, so with the Army, I mean, there's a lot of perks that come with being in the Army. I'd say a lot of pros and a lot of cons, but definitely one of the pros is when you PCS, the Army will come in and literally, well, PCSing is moving. It's a permanent change of station. So when the Army gives you orders, you sometimes you get the opportunity to select, like we did here, coming here. Leaving, we didn't get the option. So, we're gonna be heading to El Paso, Texas, to Fort Bliss. So that'll be a whole new experience. But PCSing, is when, you get orders and you gotta move to another place for the next 2 or 3 years. And, and the process is actually obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, but the actual move is pretty good because the Army pays for a company to come in, and they literally pack up your whole entire house. You don't have to really touch a thing. They take all the clothes right out of your closet, like, it's not like you have to pack anything up. And then they move it and, depending on where it is, it'll take, a couple weeks to a month to get there. So, that's why right now we're living at a hotel, is they already came and got all our furniture. Instead of sleeping on the floor, we're gonna stay in a hotel for a couple weeks.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what perks did you have for, what kind of loan products did you get being in the military?
So obviously the VA loan is amazing for that's probably to me the biggest pro because that's what allowed us to buy our home in Colorado, which then, with the VA loan, you could do zero money down, which is amazing, especially for first time home buyers. And so because of that, in Colorado, we were able to purchase a home and then 2 years later sell it and make 100,000 without doing anything to the home. And then coming here, that allowed us to buy a nice property here without having to put any money down.
That's
And so
crazy,
it's
right?
the
Isn't
VA
that
loan
wild?
is really an amazing,
Mm,
yeah, so crazy.
mhm. And tell us about BAH for the audience that they don't know what BAH is.
Yep, so the BAH is a basic, housing allowance that the military gives you per month. So it doesn't matter if you're renting or you're buying, you'll still get this BAH if you're not living in the barracks. So, essentially, when we moved here, the BAH covered our entire mortgage. So we bought the property with 0 money down, and then the BAH covered our entire mortgage. We do have to come out of pocket, about 500 a month, um, because of the HOA, but, you can't beat that, and so another amazing pro is, the BAH that covers that, so even if if the market's not right at the time and you're looking to rent or something, you can just use your full BAH and find a nice place to rent. But ideally, you should use your VA loan, buy a place with 0 money down, and use your BAH to pay the mortgage on that home.
My question would be, would you buy again? Do you have any regrets? Do you believe in real estate? How confident do you feel?
Yeah, 100%, especially after the Colorado, lesson, because to me, that was a very important lesson buying property is a very great investment over the long run, and holding on to that property, it was a lesson that, yeah, we made some money from, but in the long run, we could have made so much more and just, been set and hold on to, just start having multiple properties that, you're renting out and cash flowing. And, real estate is for sure, I've learned, probably the best investment you can make, especially in the long run.
Sweet. So, any last, final thoughts, takeaways for audience, what you do, the impact, and, you know, real estate in general? What final words do you have for the audience?
I would say overall, find a professional. This is the biggest purchase or sell transaction of your life. So regardless whether it's the photographer, the real estate agent, the loan officer, you really should it's not something you should just try to, for sale by owner. I just would not recommend it. There's so much to go into it when you don't know, if that's not your field. So that would be my biggest advice is overall, it's such a big transaction that, like I said, whether it's the photographer, realtor, loan officer, find a professional, you know, and it's not like the first person you talk to you have to hire. You can, talk to multiple people and see who you kind of vibe with the best and get the best, interaction with. So that would definitely be my biggest advice is just find a professional to help guide you along the way, cause me as a photographer, as a loan officer, a realtor, we're in this industry, we see it every day, so we know what's going on with the ebbs and flows.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just important to find someone who is a professional in that field and knows what they're doing.
That's great advice, and I have to echo that. It's important to find somebody that you vibe with, and also they're doing what they need to do for you, right? Because
Uh-huh.
I'm sure people have gone and just selected maybe a loan officer, an agent, and maybe they just didn't vibe with them after, or they weren't delivering, right? We work really hard to do our best, but sometimes I think the ball gets dropped, and I think as a buyer or seller they need to recognize, hey, this individual isn't kind of up to par or is not doing what I need. Right, here's even a thing that kind of I thought of when you mentioned that. What if you have a realtor that is hiring a not so professional photographer? What happens then? What do you recommend them to do with the agent if they see and they're like, "Oh, I don't really like those photos or videos."
Me personally, just from my point of view, if I was, taking myself out of being a photographer, if I was, using a realtor and selling my home and I got back photos that I saw were not, that I think did not do the property justice,
Uh-huh.
I would be very upfront with the agent and not in obviously a mean way or anything,
Right.
but just let them know how you feel and that, you would love to maybe find someone else to do the photo. Ask them if, do you have anyone else that you possibly, you think could get, a little bit better photos to really do the property justice because especially if you're selling, it's such a big, it's a big deal. And so it's so important to have good media. So I think just being honest with your realtor, your loan officer, and it doesn't have to be confrontational or anything. It's just having an honest conversation. And with a transaction like this, it's just so important.
So very true. Well, JP, thanks so much for joining us and giving us some of your knowledge and your expertise. Audience, thanks for joining us. Hit subscribe. If you want more information on JP, I will be dropping that below. And all the best to you, JP. I'll be in touch.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
You take care.